1012, and it gives me 1,250 feet. Texas.
Announced the arrival of the flight from Los Angeles and Chicago.
Explosion.
And welcome everybody to a podcast edition of TNZ Talk on Monday, June 6th, the year of our Lord 2016. And I am Tony Trupiano, the T in TNZ. Joining me as well is Richard Zombeck, the Z in TNZ. Richard, of course, a very gifted writer with the Huffington Post and Liberals Unite. And Z, as we begin this Monday morning, of course, we want to just briefly mention the passing of boxing great and activism extraordinaire Muhammad Ali, who left this world on Saturday morning. And as his daughter Lila said in an interview this morning, he can talk again, he can move again, and chances are he's punching the daylights out of somebody right now.
Yeah, and devout Muslim, by the way.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, since we're going to spend a lot of time picking on Donald Trump today. For a guy that is anti-Muslim and in favor of banning them coming into this country, he was one of the first people to jump on the Ali bandwagon yesterday, or Saturday.
Well, of course, because he's a self-serving douchebag.
Indeed, all of that is true. Exhibit A, what he did Saturday morning with Muhammad Ali. But even going back a little further, and we'll get into this in more detail in just a little bit, what he continues to do with the American judge listening to his case on Trump U, which, by the way, is now starting to really careen out of control. But I ran into a little audio this weekend, Z, about the cable news pundits, and that they're not necessarily reporting the news anymore, but certainly opining about it. And it really does bring up an interesting point, which is, what is the purpose of cable news? Now, let me use Muhammad Ali as an example. If you were watching any of the cable news networks this weekend, as I know you were, you couldn't turn on a TV, especially on Saturday, without seeing all of them going on and on and on. Now, I'm not saying the passing of Muhammad Ali wasn't worthy of extended coverage. It certainly was. But was it really worthy of 16 or 18 hours of coverage? Was it worthy of people just literally creating noise pollution? I don't think so. You know, I almost get the impression that there are executives sitting at every one of the cable outlets that have that wall of TVs, that infamous wall of TVs, and they don't want to be the first one to pull the plug on the coverage. So they watch the other networks until they see it starting to fizzle out, and then maybe they'll make the decision to do the same. It's like, I want to be first, but I also don't want to be first to walk away.
Well, exactly. I mean, this is like why we have 3D models of airliners, why we have them doing role-playing of airliners. This is why, you know, CNN gets made fun of on The Daily Show constantly and relentlessly, is because they just cover this stuff nonstop. And the thing is, too, here's what gets me, right? It's like, we're the only friggin' country in the world. Paris is having major flooding. They've had to evacuate parts of the Louvre. There's like, the streets have 3-4 feet of water in them. People are losing their homes and their minds. And I didn't see anything on that on any news station over the weekend at all.
Well, there's no question that is a huge story, and there are other very big stories that are being ignored by the U.S. media. You know, I'm aware of this stuff because I actually read papers from outside this country online on a daily basis, and so I certainly get an education that a lot of people don't get. You know, it's interesting because if I post, as you do, on these issues, and Get no response at all. None. Zero.
Well, yeah, because it's not interesting, right? What's interesting is, Donald Trump said something crazy about, Muslims or a Hispanic judge or whatever. Before we get to that clip, the two things. One, let
me interrupt for a moment. This is the problem with you controlling the audio. I enjoyed it so much more when I controlled the audio. I'm just teasing. I'm not sure why I'm hearing. What am I hearing? Oh, I'm hearing one of my browsers shooting audio for no reason. All right. I hate when that happens. We're going to get to that topic today, too. We'll get to it. Go ahead. Man, there's just so much. See, that's just it. There's so much we want to get to.
Speaking of the internet, go to our website, tnztalk.com. You can find out how to support us, follow us, friend us, and support us. You can also find out how to support us.
Or send us money. Or give us money.
Or send us money.
Or gift us money.
Or support us. tnztalk.com, and you can also leave us a message, and you can leave us a voicemail. It's pretty obvious. You go to tnztalk.com, you click on support, or you click on contact, and then you do your thing. There we go.
Maybe where the Patreon button is, you could put a yellow brick road. We'll just tell people to follow the yellow brick road.
Yeah, there you go.
All right.
That would be fantastic. You know what I do want to mention, though, Tony, because this really got me? Monsanto, the people that bring you Agent Orange and Roundup, which is causing cancer left and right, and many of the European and even Eastern European countries have banned, was named here in the United States as one of the top green companies.
That must be Bill Green. Just saying. All right, let's get to that. Let's get to that clip on the pundits pundifying.
All right, joining us this morning.
I'm joined right now by MSNBC political analyst.
Joining me now, CNN senior political commentator.
Here to react to this,
conservative columnist and author Ann Coulter.
Donna Brazil, she's our CNN political commentator.
Hey, look, it's Laura Ingraham here.
Van Jones, political commentator, S.E. Cup.
Joining us now is Nicole Wallace.
I am an establishment Republican.
You guys play these word games.
Wait.
Everybody's credibility is shot.
So I'm not really sure what his supporters are turned on by here.
He is the heart and soul of the party.
They make him toxic to support.
He's just an animal.
Anything is possible in this business.
Donald Trump.
President Trump.
Donald Trump.
He is one of the two most talented presidential candidates any of us have covered.
I don't understand what you are talking about.
Is this honestly on TV?
Bernie Sanders is appealing to the heart, and she appears to be appealing to the head.
I think she's not as strong as people think she is.
Hillary is going to do well.
Hillary Clinton is not having a good week.
Sanders has pulled Clinton to the left on certain issues.
Should she become the nominee? She can always say compared to what? Bernie Sanders?
And how about old Bernie Sanders?
Who is he?
I would much rather have Bernie Sanders be the Democratic frontrunner.
Bernie Sanders is losing.
I think he's doing real damage to her.
Bernie Sanders is, to her, an annoyance.
Bernie Sanders is the revolution.
Thanks a lot for coming on.
Ladies, thank you.
We're back in just a moment. We'll be right back.
Thanks for coming by. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
I guess the good news in that, Z, is no matter what your point of view is, there's somebody that you can agree with.
Well, and there's someone that's going to put it on TV. I mean, here, let me just stick a microphone in your face. I mean, it's, look, we make no bones or illusions about that we have an opinion show, that, I mean, our opinion is based on fact for the most part. Sometimes I'm wrong and you correct me. But, I mean, Ann Coulter, really, on Chris Matthews? Seriously? I mean, I've seen her probably 3 or 4 times a week. And, I mean, that woman should not be getting any airtime at all.
No, you're not going to get an argument out of me, but it's not up to you and I. And it's really indicative of the new culture in politics. One of the things that Donald Trump did that some of the media have actually opined is a good thing is that it has increased ratings. which ultimately means it increases your billable ad rate, which means you make more money. I get that. I don't like it, but I get it. But isn't that kind of being an opportunist instead of saying, I'm going to stay true to my journalistic roots and not go after the low-hanging fruit? No, it just doesn't happen that way any longer. And I understand why there's this mistrust of journalists. I don't believe the media is liberal by any sense of the imagination. I think the media have become money whores.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't mean the individual personalities, the people that run the networks, that run the newspapers, etc. Now, I think they woke up, all of them, a little bit last week after Donald Trump's attack on the media. And they've said, you know what? We've been holding back a little bit. Even on the Morning Joe show this morning, Joe Scarborough is ripping Donald Trump a new one. Now, would they do that if he were on the phone? Probably not.
No, they'd be like, oh, Donald, hi. How are you? How are your kids? I mean, what is it? What's his name? Les Moonves? Les Moonves,
whatever. Yes.
Yeah, Les Moonves, CBS, said Trump is horrible for the country. He may not be good for America, but he's damn good for CBS.
No,
I mean, seriously, you're running a news organization and you say something like that? I mean, really? This is where we are. This is where we've come to, right? I mean, seriously,
it's beyond sad, but. You know, not to get mired into that, but the reason that I brought that to the table today is that even and you and I had this conversation months ago, about how are we going to survive between now and November, talking about this stuff ad nauseum. Now, Donald Trump has, again, been a centerpiece of our show. So in a way, we're not a whole lot different than the rest of the media, but you and I have also had the discussion on air. How do we not talk about this?
Yeah,
you have to, Z.
Yeah, I know, and I'm kind of, I'm getting sick of it, but it's hard not to, because, and I'm still wondering if this was just not all a big joke. That Donald Trump was going to give this a shot to drum up a little more business and point the camera at himself, and then it took hold of him. And there's this. It's actually a very old, I want to say almost Chinese proverb that says, the man takes the drink takes the man, and then all of that. And it's kind of like, he lost complete control of this. And I had written an article that did extremely well on Huffington Post. They put it on the front page, which is one thing, but it also did really, really well, where I kind of opined that Trump was trying to get out of this by saying, because he had just said one ridiculous thing after another for a week straight. And I was kind of speculating in the article that he was trying to get out of this, right? That somehow he was trying to get the GOP to say, look, he's completely unqualified to be president, and we're not going to back him even if he gets everything. And he was going to be able to kind of bow out gracefully and call himself a victim and say, well, you see when you start telling the truth, and then not lose his integrity, because I don't think Donald Trump could stand losing, and he certainly can't quit. So, this whole article was based on that. And he just seems to be ratcheting it up. I mean, it's kind of like they're sitting around at the Trump ranch and they're going, listen, I bet you won't say this. Oh yeah? Watch me. I mean, it's gotten that ridiculous.
No, it's very junior high. And let's go back to, and although this aired yesterday on CNN with Jake Tapper, the CNN had leaked a small portion of this interview on Saturday, where Trump is on, again, with Jake Tapper on CNN, and he's asked about his comments about the quote-unquote Mexican judge, who is not Mexican, of Mexican heritage, of course. And this is what Donald Trump had to say to Jake Tapper, and then we're going to get on to what Donald Trump said about a Muslim judge or Muslim judges on Face the Nation. But let's start with the CNN interview.
Let me tell you, I'll tell you what it has to do. I have had ruling after ruling after ruling that's been bad rulings, okay? I've been treated very unfairly. Before him, we had another judge. If that judge was still there, this case would have been over 2 years ago. Let me just tell you, I have had horrible rulings. I've been treated very unfairly by this judge. Now, this judge is of Mexican heritage. I'm building a wall, okay? I'm building a wall. I am going to do very well with the Hispanics, the Mexicans.
So no Mexican judge could ever be involved in a case that involves you?
He's a member of a society where, very pro-Mexico, and that's fine. It's all fine. But
Except that you're calling into question his heritage.
I think he should recuse himself.
Because he's
then
Latino.
You also say, does he know the lawyer on the other side? I mean, does he know the lawyer? A lot of people say
But I'm
yes.
not talking about that. I'm talking about
that's another problem.
But you're invoking his race when talking about whether or not he can do his job.
Jack, I'm building a wall. Okay, I'm building a wall. I'm trying to keep business out of Mexico. Mexico's fine. There's nothing.
But he's American. He's an American.
He's of Mexican heritage, and he's very proud of it, as I am where I come from.
But he's
an
American. You keep talking about
Jake.
It's a conflict of interest because of Mexico.
Are you ready? I have a case that should have been dismissed already. I have thousands of people saying Trump University is fantastic, okay? I have a case that should have been dismissed. I have a judge that never, ever gives a... Now we lose the plaintiff. He lets the plaintiff of case out. So why isn't he canceling the case? So we thought we won the case.
So you disagree with his rulings. I totally understand that. But
I've had lawyers come up to me say, you are being treated so unfairly. It's unbelievable. Do you know the plaintiffs in the case have all said wonderful things about the school, and they're suing? You know why they're suing? Because they want to get their money back.
I don't really want to litigate the case of Trump University.
Because if he was giving me fair rulings, I wouldn't say that.
My question is...
Jake, if you were giving me fair rulings, I wouldn't be talking to you this way. He's giving me horrible rulings.
I don't care if you criticize him. That's fine. You can criticize every decision. What I'm saying is, if you invoke his race as a reason why he can't do his job...
I think that's why he's doing it.
But
I think that's why he's doing it.
When Hillary Clinton says it's a racist attack...
Hillary Clinton is a stiff. If Hillary Clinton
Paul Ryan today said he didn't care for the way that you were attacking this judge.
Look, I'm just telling you. Paul Ryan doesn't know the case. Here's the story.
Isn't it the definition...
I should have won this case on summary judgment. This is not a case. This is a case I should have won on summary judgment. Do you know the law firm paid Hillary Clinton hundreds of thousands of dollars to make speeches? Do you know the law firm?
I do, and we've reported. We've reported it on my show.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad you're the only one. The law firm. Wait a minute. The law firm paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to Hillary Clinton for speeches.
Before either of you
she
were
wasn't worth it. Everybody
fell
asleep during a speech.
Before either of you were running for president, they did. But here's the fundamental question.
Do you know that they've contributed tremendous amounts of money to her campaign?
Yes.
Do you know they've contributed a lot of money to Eric Schneiderman, the New York Attorney General?
Here's my question.
No. Do you know that?
I did not know that.
Do you know that these people went to every Attorney General practically in the country that they could? And do you know this case was turned down by almost every Attorney General from Texas to Florida to many of these states?
Is it not, when Hillary Clinton says this is a racist attack, and you reject that, if you are saying he can't do his job because of his race, is that not the definition of racism?
No, I don't think so at all.
No?
No, he's proud of his heritage. I respect him for that.
You're saying he can't do his job because of it.
Look, he's proud of his heritage, okay? I'm building a wall. Now,
I'm building a wall. There is so much. Who's Eric Schneiderman, by the way?
It's Schneiderman, but hey.
I know. I know. But Trump seems to think it's Eric Schneiderman.
Well, listen, there's so much wrong in what he just did. And it actually starts with the word they. Did you know that they did this and they? Who is they?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it's such a generic word. They. Did you know that they gave donations? Did you know that they did this? Now, Jake Tapper at some point says, well, yes, I did, without defining who they are. All that being said, and we're going to get to some of the reaction by some very well-placed GOP operatives. But before we do that, Donald Trump had a chance, after knowing full well that he was taking a lot of heat for saying what he said to Jake Tapper, and it leaked over the weekend, that on Face the Nation, he had a chance to, well, soften his tone, maybe apologize, maybe take a step back from what he had said. Instead of doing that, this is what he did.
A Muslim, though, you've been very tough on temporary Muslim immigration bans. So would a Muslim judge Muslim judge be also out of the question here?
We are allowing tremendous numbers of people coming into this country that we know nothing about. We have a problem in this country. We are going to have big problems. You know, I've been pretty good at predicting things, John. We're going to have big problems. We have people coming into this country totally undocumented. They don't know anything about them. They don't have paperwork. I've interviewed and talked to the best law enforcement people in the business. There's no way of knowing where they come from, and we're taking them in from the so-called migration. They're being sent all over the country. We have people that don't know what they're doing.
My question is, if it were a Muslim judge, would you also feel like they wouldn't be able to treat you fairly because of that policy of yours?
It's possible, yes. Yeah, that would be possible, absolutely.
Isn't there sort of a tradition, though, in America that we don't judge people by who their parents were, where they came from?
I'm not talking about tradition. I'm talking about common sense, okay? He's proud of his heritage, and I think that's great that he's proud of his heritage.
But you're saying it's a barrier to him doing his job.
No, he's not treating me fair. He's not treating me fairly.
And you think it's not because of where his parents came from?
I've had numerous lawyers. Look, I have a case where thousands of people have said it was a great school. They've written reviews where they say it's a great school, not a good school, like great. They gave it the highest marks. I have thousands of these papers. It should have been a summary judgment case, meaning the case should have been dismissed. And I had a judge who was very fair. I have a lawyer that came in when he came in. I mean, the lawyer on the other side sort of entered the case when he entered the case, and we're trying to figure out what that's all about.
Would you have your lawyers say, hey, throw this out because the judges...
Well, I may do that now.
Ask your lawyers to do that.
We're finding things out now that we didn't know before.
Because of his Mexican heritage, though. Use that as
because of other things. I mean, because of other things.
You've said you want to reopen...
How do you allow a case to proceed when the plaintiff asks to be dismissed from the case? The plaintiff, the one that brought the suit, said, I don't want to sue anymore. I don't want to sue anymore. They didn't want to sue. You know why they didn't want to? Because she can't win the case, because she was a disaster. So the lawyers want her dismissed from the case. They go before the judge and he lets her out. Well, he can let her out, but you have to dismiss the case.
Yeah, I guess I'm just still confused what his Mexican parents have to do with that.
Excuse me. I want to build a wall. I mean, I don't think it's very confusing. Well, has nothing to do with anything except common sense. You know, we have to stop being so politically correct in this country, and we need a little more common sense, John. And I'm not blaming. I'm proud of my heritage. We're all proud of our heritage. But I want to build a wall. Now, the Hispanics, many of them like what I'm saying. They're here legally. They don't want people coming and taking their jobs and taking their house and everything else. They don't want that.
Okay, well, where do we begin again? You know, Z, it's interesting because Juan Williams wrote a piece that I posted to social media this morning that is getting an interesting reaction. And it's titled The Fantasy of Trump's Appeal. And it's based on the reality of available polling that shows that the Mexicans don't like him, that women don't like him, that blacks don't like him, that in spite of what he says and what the campaign says, he is not doing well with those constituencies. And so he can go on and on and on all he wants. I have a lot of Muslim friends. I know a lot of people of Mexican descent. I've yet to meet one that says, I'm embracing him and his ideology because, frankly, it's about time someone said what Donald Trump is saying.
Yeah, and here there's a couple of things, right, from both of these that I wanted to address. Is one, your girlfriend there, what's her name?
Kristen,
the Trump
Pearson.
spokesperson.
Kristen Pearson.
Yeah. Isn't it? Katrina Pearson.
Katrina Pearson. But why are you getting hung up on her name? What's your point?
Okay, so she was on also accusing the judge of being part of an anti-Trump group, and he's not. He's part of a group of lawyers and judges with a Hispanic heritage, and they are not part of the Never Trump movement. So they've conflated two different groups and made it look like he's a part of this other organization. And while, this has been refuted numerous times by the press, Trump and his spokespeople just soldier on with their version of the truth. Now, Trump also mentioned that the attorney generals in Texas and Florida dropped his cases, which, in fact, is very true. And Pam Bondi I'm no big fan of Pam Bondi in Florida because of the way that she handled the foreclosure and fraudulent foreclosure issues in Florida during 2009 till now. But as it turns out, both of these AGs who dropped their investigation into Trump University received tens of thousands of dollars from Trump in campaign donations and are also under investigation for ethics violations. So he can say whatever he wants. But these people dropped their cases. Yeah, well, you paid them off. And this is getting even more serious than a lot of what we're looking at and have been looking at with just his rhetoric is the fact that, we may very well be looking at bribery charges.
Well, clearly there's a disconnect between now Donald Trump and the rest of the GOP. And so as we take a look, I got to just close that website for good. As we, take a look and really start to break down what the domino effect might be, there's something that you and I talked about in great detail this morning about the GOP putting party before country. And let's start with Mitch McConnell, who was on Meet the Press with Chuck Todd yesterday morning, asked a simple question. And the question is, were the comments that Donald Trump made racist? And this is what Senator McConnell had to say.
Yeah, Senator McConnell.
Yeah, Senator.
Here it is.
You know what he has said about this federal judge that's overseeing the Trump University lawsuit. He has essentially said he cannot be impartial because he's Hispanic. Is that not a racist statement?
I couldn't disagree more with a statement like that.
Is it a racist statement?
I couldn't disagree more with what he had to say.
Okay, but do you think it's a racist statement to say?
I don't agree with what he had to say. This is a man who was born in Indiana. Mm-hmm. All of us came here from somewhere else. Almost all Americans are either near-term immigrants, like my wife, who came here at age 8, not speaking a word of English, or the rest of us whose ancestors were risk takers and who got up from wherever they were and came here and made this country great. That's an important part of what makes America work.
I want to read you something that Eric Erickson, a conservative commentator, wrote for The Resurgent. He wrote it yesterday. The attacks are racist. To claim someone is unable to objectively and professional perform his job because of his race is racism, and damn the GOP for its unwillingness to speak up on this. The party of Lincoln intends to circle the wagons around a racist. Damn them for that. What do you say to Mr. Erickson?
I think the party of Lincoln wants to win the White House, and the right of center world needs to respect the fact that the primary voters have spoken. Donald Trump has won the nomination the old-fashioned way. He got more votes than anybody else. Mm-hmm. Is he the perfect candidate for a lot of us? No, he isn't. But we have a two-party system here. And Hillary Clinton is certainly not something that I think would be good for the country to continue, basically, the Obama administration for another 4 years.
Well, there you go. Those that are right of center, which would include him. And by the way, there's another article that was out over the weekend where Mitch McConnell's advice to Donald Trump is you need to change. Now, this is coming from a man who hasn't changed at all since it was announced that Barack Obama won the presidency in 2007, which would, of course, begun the presidency in 2008. Z, come on. Who the F does this guy think he's fooling?
Well, come on. I mean, Donald Trump, let's say he comes out and he goes, listen, I think we need to round up all the Muslims and put them in gas chambers. What's McConnell going to say? Listen, I don't agree with that, but he's a better choice than Hillary any day.
Well, wait a minute. You've got to wonder. I mean, you really have got to wonder. Time is flying by already. I want to get next because it's in the family of what we're talking about. Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House. And by the way, for those that don't know, Mitch McConnell does not only just serve in the Senate, he is the Senate Majority Leader. Okay? He is the top guy in the Senate. Well, Newt Gingrich is the former Speaker of the House, who has had more than his fair share of controversy in his distinguished career. The author of The Contract on America, known as The Contract with America. But part of that contract, Richard Zombeck, was to be more inclusive of minorities. Well, that's all well and good, and Newt Gingrich starts this interview off in a way that gave me hope. But take a close listen, folks.
A look outside the Beltway at the California State Capitol in Sacramento just 2 days before the primary there. Joining me now here in Washington to discuss the escalating war of words between Clinton and Trump is one of Trump's big supporters, potential running mate and former House Speaker Newt Gingrich. Mr. Speaker, welcome back to Fox News
Sunday.
Good
to be back.
Clinton, as we just pointed out in the last segment, went after Trump's temperament this week, saying that he's unfit to be president. And one of the things that Trump did this week was repeatedly accuse the judge who's handling 2 Trump University fraud lawsuit cases of bias. Here he is.
We're building a wall. He's a Mexican. We're building a wall between here and Mexico. The answer is he is giving us very unfair rulings that people can't even believe.
Are you comfortable with a potential president attacking a federal judge for his heritage?
No. This is one of the worst mistakes Trump has made. I think it's inexcusable. He has every right to criticize a judge, and he has every right to say certain decisions aren't right, and his attorneys can file to move the venue from the judge. But first of all, this judge was born in Indiana. He is an American, period. When you come to America, you get to become an American. And Trump, who has grandparents who came to the U.S., should understand this as much as anybody. Second, to characterize, if a liberal were to attack Justice Clarence Thomas on the grounds that he's black, we would all go crazy. Every conservative would say it was wrong, and it was racism. And Trump has got to, I think, move to a new level. This is no longer the primaries. He's no longer an interesting contender. He is now the potential leader of the United States, and he's got to move his game up to the level of being a potential leader.
All right. So that all sounded great, didn't it?
Yeah.
As it went on, and, it was a very, it was for us, it was a long interview, and we couldn't it was 11 minutes long, and I couldn't grab all of it, obviously. But Newt Gingrich goes on, when asked, do you believe this is racist? He dodges the question. Part of the reason he dodges it, as you know, is he may end up on the same ticket as Donald Trump. Interestingly, Trump's response to Newt Gingrich's comments is that Newt Gingrich should leave his opinions to himself.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I mean, it's just gotten so completely ridiculous, and
this is now happening to you 2 or 3 times a week. I'm sure they have a pill for that. It's astounding. It really is astounding. Let's both take one more crack at this, and then we'll move on to some other stuff. But I truly do believe that because of Donald Trump's attack on the media, and the media has been softballing him for a long time now, I believe a decision has been made at the highest levels that they can get the same ratings out of now berating Donald Trump as they got by coddling him.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I like that, you take Tapper's interview where he just didn't let up. I think the count was he asked him 23 times.
Yep.
23 times. And Trump's response was, oh, I'm building a wall. Hey, have I told you I'm building a wall? Oh, by the way, I'm building a wall. And, I got to hand it to Tapper because it was better than usual, but it's still not journalism.
No, well, but it was closer. I mean, they're inching closer, and maybe, this is like everything else, practice makes perfect. So I'll give them points for that. I truly.
I mean, here's the thing, Tony, and I was thinking about this the other day, is you often hear the media complain, and Chuck Todd has said it when he has come on as a pundit onto other shows, where they've basically admitted that if they're too hard on the candidates, they don't get the candidates to come on, right? And that should maybe be part of their strategy. Is if a candidate refuses to come on, or if a politician refuses to come on, you say, hey, listen, this is what we have. This is what we've been told. This is what we're hearing with other people that we've interviewed. We reached out to so-and-so, and he's refused to come on the show because he's a chicken, or whatever, and play that card. The media used to be extremely powerful in elections and in the way they got politicians to come on, basically by saying, look, if you're not willing to talk about this, we're going to say whatever the hell we want about it. And play it that way.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how this week unfolds. Now, let's, for the sake of time, move on to I don't want to call it uncomfortable conversation that you and I had post-show or pre-show today. But tomorrow is a big day for the Democratic primaries. And whereas it is assumed that Hillary Clinton will get the remaining delegates she needs to be the presumptive nominee. You and I didn't necessarily disagree with that, but you had some issues with fairness. You had some issues with some of the rules that are out there, and you're not alone. There are a lot of people like that out there. The comment that I had made to you, and of course you can feel free to disagree with me, because you have many times, is that we can do more damage by allowing the Bernie Sanders campaign and those that follow him to take tomorrow to make it some kind of baseball bat that they want to beat the Democratic Party up with. I think at a time where we finally have the pendulum swinging in the right direction against Donald Trump, that this may be an excuse to take that focus away. And I'm very concerned about that. Maybe I shouldn't be. Maybe I should be more concerned with process and fairness. But right now I'm not.
Yeah, I still am. Sorry.
No, I mean, listen, and I'm not going to apologize for my stance.
Let me just say, I like Bernie a lot. I do. I know that there's a very slim chance of him becoming president. But also I want this to be fair, and I don't want people to acquiesce.
How is it not fair, though? What has not been fair?
Well, what hasn't been fair, Tony, is the way that one, the debates were set up. Two, that
again, stop.
Wait a minute.
No, let's take them one by one. Take them one by one. No, because when you do it this way, then we don't get to have a hearty debate. Let's start with the debates. How were they unfair to Bernie Sanders?
I thought that the debates were basically hidden and put on a back burner and shrouded in secrecy, so that very few people could actually watch the debates and get a clear understanding of who Bernie Sanders was. At the time that these debates were scheduled, very few people in this country knew who Bernie Sanders was, and the DNC was scheduling the debates at 3 a.m. on a Sunday.
Not true.
So
you're way over dramatizing what happened.
I'm exaggerating, yes, but they were.
All right, we've had this argument before. Did the Sanders campaign agree to the debate schedule? Yes or no?
Sure.
All right. Did they agree to the times?
Sure.
All right. When they asked for more debates, were they given them? In spite of the fact that you knew the Clinton campaign didn't want them?
Eventually.
Okay. So they ended up getting either everything they wanted or agreed to everything that was put in front of them. Yes?
Sure.
All right. So let's move on to your next point. How else was this unfair?
My next point is that the media continuously and without regard for facts counted superdelegates.
Okay. Now, that's been a part of the process since 1982.
It hasn't.
Even Bernie Sanders said that it wasn't rigged, it was dumb. I agree with them.
That I agree with, and that's all I'm saying. I mean, you seem to think that I have this I'm a holdout for Bernie Sanders, and I'm not.
I have not said that once. I have not said that once.
I just think the process in the system sucks.
Okay, and I agree with you. We are in complete agreement, but you keep on saying it's not fair. Who's it not fair to?
Okay, that's a good point. I'll concede on that.
All right.
I think it's stupid, and I think also that we're dealing with Trump's favorite electorate, the uneducated.
Well, and again, I'm not. Listen, I'll remind, and not that I need to remind you, that I voted for Bernie Sanders in the Michigan primary. I adore Bernie Sanders. There's nothing about the guy I don't love, except over the last 8 weeks, never mind. I just don't like the way the campaign has been run the last 8 weeks. But with that said,
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, it's been uncomfortable.
And let's also be clear that the violence at the Trump rallies were actually people wearing Crips and blood colors. They weren't Bernie Sanders supporters.
No, and in fact, the people that were at the protests and rallies said they weren't voters and they weren't Democrats.
Right.
They were anti-Trump. That's what they were. And there's,
right.
Again, there's no excuse for violence, period. I don't condone it. You don't condone it. Anybody that has even an uneducated brain, well, not everybody, but a lot of people that even have an uneducated brain wouldn't condone it.
No, they weren't. But let's be clear that they weren't voters. They weren't Democrats.
Right, and they weren't. With all that said, this just goes back to the point that we started the conversation with. I don't want the distraction of what comes on Wednesday morning. Now, Bernie Sanders, and there's a lot of reporting out there this morning that the Sanders campaign is split on how to deal post-Tuesday. Half the camp, according to articles I've read, said that they want to concede this thing and try to unite the party immediately. There's the other side of the camp that said, no, Bernie has promised that he's going to take this all the way to the convention. It'll be a contested convention, that she won't have enough pledged delegates. But when was the last time a candidate did on the Democratic side? And so, it creates, again, this narrative that as a country, as a Democrat, I don't want to have. Not that it's not a worthy discussion and not that there isn't a time to have it. But I think that the pendulum is starting to massively swing against Donald Trump, I don't want the narrative to change. And maybe I'm just being selfish, Z, but you and I both know that Trump could frickin' win this thing.
Yeah, I know.
And I think this takes us one step away from that happening. And listen, I don't like the super delegate. It was funny because there was an article over the weekend, and I don't remember the congresswoman's name. She didn't even know she was a super delegate.
Yeah. Well, and there are lobbyists too that are super delegates.
Well, yeah, if you're a Democratic official and you happen to be a lobbyist, absolutely. Listen, it's not just you that is, you are solidly against superdelegates. I'm a little more lukewarm only because they've been around a while. And
hold on. I'm not against superdelegates. I'm against superdelegates being counted before it matters.
Well, okay, we can.
Well, Tony, if one person wins the nomination fair and square, the delegates aren't necessary. The superdelegates aren't necessary. So counting them before the nomination even happens is misleading. It's grossly misleading.
I disagree because the process has been the way the process has been for a long time now. And as I just said, I don't remember the last time a Democratic candidate went into the convention with all the pledged delegates they need without superdelegates. Let me also remind you that at this point, only 46 of the superdelegates have definitively said they were going with Bernie. Now, does that leave it open that, 600 or 700 more are going to change their mind? No. Just not going to happen.
Well, look, I could try to look for it, but we've played it before on the show of Jake Tapper being told by an official of the DNC not to stop, that CNN needs to stop including superdelegates in the count.
It was Louis Miranda, who's a spokesperson for the Democratic National Committee. I remember it very, very well. With that said, Cenk Uygur, who does a show called The Young Turks, which has 1 million plus listeners or watchers on YouTube, had a CNN host on the program and got into a little, I don't know, what do you want to call it, scuffle with him?
Kerfuffle.
Well, I was going to, but it wasn't really a kerfuffle, but
it wasn't.
It was good to use the word anyway. It's been a while.
At least once during the show.
Yeah, so let's listen to Cenk Uygur go at it.
Oh, no. Brian, this is very important. If you say, hey, superdelegates are likely to vote this way, or they say they're voting this way, as an aside, that's perfectly fair. But if you count them in the official tally when you know they can and often do switch their votes and have not voted yet, that is simply incorrect. That is not a fact. That is the opposite of a fact.
But the Hillary delegates switched because Obama was going to win. In this case, we know the superdelegates are establishment figures or former governors and people like that are clearly pro-Clinton. Nothing's going to happen that's going to change their mind.
Again, not true. So, Brian, you say nothing's going to happen.
What's going to happen? Tell me.
I can tell you exactly what could happen.
Are you wishing for an indictment?
Are for extraordinary. Hold on. They are for extraordinary circumstances. You know what would be extraordinary? If one of the candidates were indicted. Of course. So you guys keep assuming there will be no indictment. And, Brian, I hear you have reliable sources. So tell me, do you have any sources inside the FBI or the State Department that have already told you that she is not going to get indicted? Because that would be news.
I do not. I cover media, not the FBI. But the indications at the moment are that she hasn't been interviewed by the FBI. I hear what you're saying about the indictment, but other than that, it seems to me you're misleading your audience, giving them more hope than they should actually have. You think about what's going to happen on Tuesday at 8 p.m. New Jersey's going to close.
That's
and
not
for the
true
first
at all.
time in the history of this country, frankly, this is really exciting to say. For the first time in the history of this country, we're going to have a female nominee of a major party. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat or Libertarian. That's something this country should note and acknowledge. And don't you think it's a shame that the Bernie Sanders talk is going to overshadow what we can all agree is a historic milestone?
I mean, look at the framing you just gave it, right? So I think Hillary Clinton is a completely pro-establishment candidate that will continue this corrupt system where private interests finance the elections.
Historic milestone?
And so, but instead of looking at it as, hey, wait a minute, one guy hasn't corrupting money and the other one has, you frame it as male versus female, and hence put me in a position where I'm forced to say, no, I don't think it would be historic because I think it's the same old establishment, whether it's a male, a female, or anything else. So the framing is all biased. And I'm not saying that because I think that you're liberal or you're conservative, you're pro-Hillary or not. It's just the establishment told us from day one, the superdelegates have already voted when they did not, and you tell us today to, hey, make sure you go away and you support the establishment candidate. And you're wrong about how I've presented it on the show. I tell people about the delegate math all the time. And as Bernie Sanders himself acknowledges, it is an uphill battle for him to win more pledged delegates, a massive uphill battle, right? And I've said, and I've challenged Bernie Sanders on my program, and I said, look, if there are more pledged delegates on her side and there's no indictment, well, then the race is over, right? Those are ifs, though. They have not happened yet. And the superdelegates vote at the convention. So for you guys to call it when you don't know what the circumstances are and those people have not voted yet, it is just simply incorrect. That is not journalism.
Okay. Now, I'll let you go first.
Well, it's a good argument, you know. And I forget his last name, but Brian there on CNN, he's a bit of a weenie. But you know, I mean, the interesting question that I just find ridiculous is that, you know, he even has the balls to say something like, "Are you hoping for an indictment?" When that's not the discussion at all. That again it's not journalism, it's sensationalism, and it's accusatory. So, you know, Cenk is trying to a degree talk about the facts and the way things are and how they appear. And then you've got, you know, someone who calls himself a journalist just asking ridiculous questions.
All right. In all fairness to Cenk, and I think we need to make this point, he's no different than you and I. He does an opinion-based show. It's not a news show. He is very pro-Bernie, has been from day one, as is Ed Schultz, and they're very upfront about that, and that's all well and good. And so the bias is built in. You can hear it in the argument, but it's not that the argument is flawed. It's just slanted in a certain way. Well, I shouldn't say even slanted. It's heated in a certain direction because of, you know, what, again, a lot of pro-Bernie people want to see. They don't want to see Hillary indicted, but they're open to the idea. They truly are. And I don't believe it's going to happen either. I read a story last week, and maybe you saw it as well, that there were 124 FBI agents working on the email server investigation. Now, I don't know if it's true. It came from a reputable source, but I don't know that it's true. And they didn't necessarily print it as if it were God's fact. So we'll leave it alone. For now, we'll leave it alone.
It's not true.
Okay. So, you know, with all that said, though, with all that we know, and now we've got the guy that set up her email server taking the fifth, which means we're not going to get any information out of him that way. There's no way she's indicted. There's just no way at this point. Now, with all that said, is it possible? Yeah. Is it probable? No, it's not. Now, again, this all gets in, there's all this minutia when the real argument that Cenk puts forward is the real argument. That why are you counting superdelegate votes before the convention? The reason they're doing it, and all anybody in the media has to say is, because it's the way it's always been done. And maybe it's flawed, and maybe it's wrong, but it's the way we've always done it. Donald Trump became the presumptive nominee, not because he had the needed pledged delegates, but because of the Republican version of superdelegates put him over the top. You don't hear people screaming and yelling about that, see?
Yeah, okay.
I'm just saying, you know, this is not a win or lose argument at the end of the day. Listen, to stay true to our ongoing promise to do something non-election related, and we don't have time to get to the audio, But I did want to quickly mention that out of Charlotte, North Carolina, comes a story that has absolutely nothing to do with bathrooms. It has to do with a former Marine who worked as a private contractor for Time Warner Cable at one of their offices. And on Memorial Day, when he went to put the flag up, on Memorial Day, this former Marine that served 2 tours of duty, who lost a friend to suicide from post-traumatic stress disorder, decided that he would honor his country and fallen soldiers by only putting the flag up at half-mast. He was fired for it.
Welcome to America.
What I really find disgusting about, I mean, beyond the fact that he was fired, that literally minutes after he put the flag up at half-mast, somebody came out and was ordered to put it all the way up. That's just wrong.
Yeah. What was their reason for firing him?
Basically, because he didn't ask first.
Great.
Welcome to America.
Yeah. Beautiful. Hooray.
And all I'm going to say is when you're a private contractor and you're not represented by a union and you have no recourse, you get fired.
That's a good point, Tony.
And, you know, I'm going to leave it there. It's in the Charlotte Observer. I've posted it to the TNZ Facebook page if anybody would like to go watch the video that this gentleman did, this former Marine, this patriot. He explains it. He does it unemotionally. And I think it's worthy of your time. We just don't have time to get to it this morning, the audio, that is. But I wanted to mention the story. I also want to mention very quickly that I am now a daily guest on Daybreak USA with Angie Austin on the USA Radio Network every morning. And I'm either going to be on Monday and Tuesdays at 7:35 and then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 7:25. And so we'll be covering a lot of different topics, not just politics. But I'm that she's included me. She's great about mentioning TNZTalk.com, and she does it twice every segment, and we're both grateful for that.
Extremely. In the meantime, you can find out more about TNZ Talk at TNZTalk.com. Find us, follow us, friend us, support us, contact us, anything you want to do at TNZTalk.com.
And send money.
And send money.
And send money. Well, Z, I don't know if we've ever had a quicker hour than this one, but it sure did fly by. I'm going to hope that tomorrow we don't have to do all Trump all the time. But you know what? You and I don't control that. So, well, I mean, we do to a degree, but we don't. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for being with us today. We will be back with another podcast tomorrow. In the meantime, have a great day. And as always, and for Richard Zonbeck and myself, Tony Trupiano, we ask that you be well.
Oh, yeah. Can you feel it? Just over the credits, just riffing now. Words and chords. Not the poetry and the real thing, but not bad for an ad-lib. Not good, but... And it's not long enough, so just do a little bit more. And that's nearly done. That's the final credit there. That's the end.